All right, good morning. Excuse how I look. It's a mask. Don't panic. Don't freak out. Keep the jokes to yourself. But I came to speak on a reading that I had today from my one of the books that I read in the morning when I do my devotionals, and it talks about how when you go into the fire and that you're being attacked or whatever by your enemies, like God's going to be with you. And so the readings that it gave was Isaiah 43:2, and then it gave Daniel 3. Isaiah 43:2 was talking about how when you cross deep or long rivers, I don't know why my voice is changing, excuse me. When you cross the deep or long rivers, God will be with you. And it was also saying in Daniel 3, of course, it talks about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the things that stood out to me were in verses 16 through 18, when Nebuchadnezzar had sent them into the furnace, or was preparing to send them into the furnace, because they basically told them, like, no, we're not about to serve your God. And they replied and they said, Your Majesty, we don't need to defend ourselves. The God we worship can save us from you and your flaming furnace. But even if he doesn't, we still won't worship your gods and the gold statue you have set up. So then, of course, Nebuchadnezzar is upset. He orders them to heat up the furnace 7 times hotter than they typically heat up the furnace. He gets his strongest soldiers, his strongest men that work at his command, to tie up these 3 young men and put them in that furnace 7 times hotter than it typically is. Just the 3 of them went in there. So even with the strongest soldiers throwing them in, God, being who he is, used the flames to burn and kill those same soldiers that put their hands on those 3 young men. So then it says, Nebuchadnezzar looked in the furnace and he saw 4 men. He put 3 in, but he saw 4. These boys' faith was so strong. Like, their relationship with God was so strong. Like, they knew they didn't even have to defend themselves. Like, just the confidence in that infuriated Nebuchadnezzar, so much so that he had to use fire that was 7 times hotter than he typically does. And even in the midst of that, God still stood in the fire with them. Like, how many times in this world are people picked on or talked about because they choose not to defend themselves against people who enlist armies, who enlist other people that conform to the gold statue versus conforming to who God is, just because they want to be in the number, that they want to be in the midst of the mess, right? These boys didn't defend themselves. They didn't have to. And God was still there with them the whole time. How many times have we chose to defend ourselves just for it to look and go crazy? Could you imagine being put in a furnace, not coming out smelling like smoke? And I'm crying because for these past few years, I have felt like I have been going through smoke, put in the fire that somebody else chose to heat up for my life. Because they see that I'm not choosing to conform to their mess. But I ain't had to defend myself. God gonna do that. Y'all might have heard the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But it's something about reading it when you going through your own fire. Imagine God burning up or utilizing the same tool that your enemies, that the people who put their hands on you, whether spiritually or physically, God chooses to use that same thing to scorch and burn the people that put their hands on you. You didn't have to do nothing. It's just from the simple fact that they touched you. The simple fact that they touched you. And because of your relationship and your faith in God, that same thing that they use to attempt to destroy you, God uses to destroy them. If y'all ain't read Daniel 3 and you going through something, go on over there and read it. If you've never read Daniel 3, you need to go read it. Because you need to get some faith. And some standstill, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Them boys said, even if he don't, we still ain't gonna worship your gods. We still not conforming to your mess. But so many people rather choose to conform to the majority of mess. That man told them to bow down to a gold statue. And a lot of people choose to bow. Stay strong. Peace.